What that means for Oklahoma and what we've seen in our test scores is we got young people that aren't going to be prepared to go get the jobs that they want.
Tonight, we're getting a look at the impact the COVID pandemic had on children's test scores.
A government-sponsored report says since the pandemic, there's been a decrease in students' reading and math test scores.
FOX23's Tony Morzitsky talked one-on-one with State Superintendent Ryan Walters and local districts about how they plan to turn things around. It's a story you'll see only on FOX23.
With the school year just weeks away, districts tell me they're working on ways to implement changes to make sure that we get to pre-pandemic numbers and help kids get back on track to where they were. And now, according to State Superintendent Ryan Walters, he's making sure that this year's historic budget that was passed help implement the changes he wants to make to the education system to help students succeed.
With schools out for the summer, that means no bells, empty school playgrounds, and no lessons in the classroom. That doesn't mean that the thought of the start of the school year in August is not already popping up in educators' minds.
I'm very concerned with the test scores that our kids are showing.
In my one-on-one interview in the car with State Superintendent Ryan Walters, he expressed his concern over the National Assessment of Educational Progress, also dubbed the Nation's Report Card, which is a congressionally mandated program. According to the National Report Card, scores declined for students in reading and math. Specifically, the site mentions 13-year-olds. The average scores for 13-year-olds declined 4 points in the reading and 9 points in mathematics, compared to the previous assessment administered during the 2019-20 school year.
And if they don't know math, how are they ever going to advance in a career field? If they don't know how to read, how are they ever going to understand the job responsibilities?
The elephant in the room is the why scores on the decline.
Do you think as a result of what we saw 3 years ago for COVID?
I think that's a great question. I absolutely think COVID hurt. I think that schools being shut down had a major impact. This is where you've seen me. I mean, I've been really clear on this. Teachers' unions advocating for school shutdown, that was the wrong position. We knew it at the time, and all of the test scores have come out to prove that to be so. Also, we were on a downward trajectory before COVID. So we were already having issues in our education system before COVID hit. COVID exposed more of it. COVID really allowed us to see some of the issues going on in the classroom, but it was already, we weren't doing good for our kids. We didn't have kids that were excelling in math and reading and science and history the way that they should. So we have an issue in the state. Our education system is not meeting the needs of all learners.
Multiple districts in Green Country tell me it's baby steps when it comes to recovering from COVID years and making sure kids get back on track. But pre-pandemic numbers are not far off heading into the 23-24 school year. Like for Broken Arrow Public Schools, according to Jean Brassfield with BAPS.
Some scores still from the pandemic have declined. However, we noticed significant gains last year.
In Muskogee, Superintendent Jared Mendenhall says things are on the up and up.
We're really trending about what we were pre-COVID.
Todd Nelson with Union Public Schools says in 3 years, they're about halfway from where they were testing before the pandemic hit.
We're going to see things that are pretty close at the end of this next year and the year after. At Union, our goal is to exceed where we were.
With strides to get students back on track, districts share how COVID federal dollars have helped.
Support several additional programs and technology, things that we can do to help mitigate those learning losses.
We have actually 2 reading interventionists, and what that means is basically any student that's behind or needing additional assistance, we're actually providing almost a one-on-one type of situation. We've also put in what's called reading recovery, and we basically take the students that are at the bottom quartile and really focus their attention on reading in the first grade. We've even moved into our 6th, 7th, and 8th and 9th grade. We call that our middle school, junior high area. And every student is now taking a reading course, not only in English, language arts, but they're also taking a reading course.
Instructional coaches are going to provide some intense training for our teachers and go over the new standards and kind of really look at them and work on vocabulary and work on different structures to kind of try to help get those scores up.
For Walters, heading into the new school year, he says we need to take a different approach with education to make sure every student gets the education they deserve.
We are looking at utilizing technology so that parents can see how their kids are performing in real time. how that parents can see how their schools are performing in real time. So we're working on several initiatives that would do that. We're also, our teacher signing bonus, we have over 700 teachers that were not teaching in Oklahoma schools last year that are going to teach in our schools this year. We're going to continue to see successes through that. So we are recruiting great teachers, high quality teachers in the classroom. That'll pay off tremendously. And lastly, what we've got to continue to do is find ways to improve the delivery methods of our education system. So that means, how do we get parents more involved? How do we get teachers more equipped in a quicker manner? So we're looking at professional development. How do we streamline this across the state? And then lastly, again, how do we continue to find these innovative approaches and get them statewide?
He says the historical budget the governor signed will help boost some of these areas like reading.
We asked for $100 million in a reading initiative. We got 10. But what we're going to do with that $10 million is we are going to utilize it to ensure that all of our teachers, our parents, have instructional coaches, have the right materials. We're teaching the science of reading. We're teaching reading in a way that every young person can understand.
In order to continue making strides with bridging the learning gap caused by COVID,
Students are not attending like they used to.
Mendenhall and Nelson are concerned with the chronic absentees they're seeing, and it needs to be addressed.
I think we've got to talk with parents and explain to them how important it is. We don't want children to come when they have fever or they're sick, but we also know that there are times that, kids aren't coming to school and their parents aren't really requiring that.
For students to learn, they need to be present. They need to be with us. They need to be engaged in the learning process.
COVID dollars need to be spent by this upcoming school year, so now districts are scrambling, trying to figure out how to keep funding going for these programs that help bridge the gap during the whole COVID process and getting students back on track. So now they're looking into federal dollars and Title I dollars that are designated for schools to use for student success. Covering news that matters, I'm Tanya Motorzitsky, Fox 23 News.
The national report card statistics reflect more than 8,700 13-year-old scores between October to December of the 2022-23 school year.